Hello and welcome to our first segment of Changing American Society. This is your host, John Boughton. Today we'll be discussing the social reformers of a certain time period known as the mid-1850s. Our lead historian on this case is Jack Murphy. He will be informing us on numerous different people throughout this time period. Welcome, Jack Murphy.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
Okay, today we'll be asking you a series of questions on these different reformers. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's start.
First question. This is about Dorothea Dix. Why was Dorothea involved in this reform?
Well, she was involved because she thought that the conditions in the jail were too bad, and that when there were sick people in the jail, that they weren't getting treated. So what she did was that she wanted them to become treated.
Yes, very, very interesting. What about Lyman Beecher?
Well, he was involved with the reform because he thought that alcohol was wrong, and they should make it illegal. So what he did was he told the government how bad alcohol was, and they made it illegal.
Very good man. Next, Horace Mann. What was so important about him?
He was the first Secretary of Education, and he was the one who wanted to create a school system, so he did so by creating the first school system.
If it weren't for him, we might not even be here today. So next, who was Catherine Beecher? I expect she's a relative of Lyman Beecher?
Yeah, Lyman was her father. And she was the one who thought that women had superior ability in teaching and was able to teach moral lessons to be a good citizen. She told a speech about how women were able to teach and do many different things.
Oh, good for her. Not only 4 more people to discover. How was Emma Willard involved in this social reform?
She was also, along with Catherine Beecher, she thought that the teaching of women needed to become more outgoing, and she was able to create a college-level institute for women.
Oh, very nice. How about Mary Lyon?
Well, what she did was also with the woman teaching with Emma and Catherine, and when the critics got mad at her, according to Stuckey on page 467, she said, "I'm doing great work and I can't come down now."
I really like that quote. Yes, only 2 more people to discover. What did Samuel Howe have to do with this reform?
Samuel opened up school for people with visual disabilities. What he did was he created the first school for these disabilities called Perkins Institute in Massachusetts.
I've been told that Thomas Gallett is also very similar to Samuel. Is that true?
Yeah, he's similar because he also created a school for people with hearing disabilities, not visual disabilities. And that is all.
Thank you, Jack. You've been a great pleasure to have on the show.
Thank you.
Woo. Hello and welcome back to Changing American Society. This is your host, John Boughton. Today we will be dealing with the philosophers and writers with new ideas. Our key historian on this topic is Adam Haas. Let's bring him in. Hello and welcome to Changing American Society, Adam. I'm going to ask you a few questions about some philosophers and writers, and I would like you to answer them.
Okay, go ahead.
Who in the world was Ralph Waldo Emerson?
Ralph Waldo Emerson was an important writer who believed in the idea of transcendentalism.
Oh, did you know that transcendentalism is the idea that people could transcend or rise above the material things in life?
Thank you.
That it is. He encouraged unity with nature, the sanctity of the individual person, and the need to live in the present, not the past.
Honestly, could you say he influenced the society?
Yes, he mainly influenced other writers like Margaret Fuller and Henry David Thoreau.
Very good. Let's talk about Margaret Fuller, shall we? Can you give us a few little tips on her?
Margaret Fuller was a women's rights leader who encouraged many others to follow their personal beliefs, rely more on their own judgment, and lead a simple life, not worrying about wealth and the material possessions. Through her writing, she changed many views about the women's rights movement and convinced many others to join the side that was fighting for the women's rights.
What exactly were some examples of her writings?
Well, one of her most famous books is Women in the 19th Century, but she also edited the transcendentalist publication The Dial.
I might have to pick that up. How about Henry David Thoreau? What did he do?
Henry David Thoreau was a transcendentalist who believed in self-reliance and distrusted institutions like many other leaders of his time. He experimented by living in a solitary cabin in the woods for 2 years and inspired many others to follow down the path of a simple life and not to worry so much about life's material objects. He stated, "I went into the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what I had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived."
If I recall correctly, that was from Thoreau on page 455.
Yes,
Correct?
it was.
Now I'd like to discuss some more important figures of you. Who was Nathaniel Hawthorne?
Nathaniel Hawthorne is a New Englander who wrote The Scarlet Letter, one of the best-known examples of romantic literature. He was one of the first writers to distinctively form the American style of writing. In The Scarlet Letter, he wrote, "Be true, be true, be true. Show freely to the world, if not your worst, yet some trait whereby the worst must be inferred."
Wow, that is very emotional. Well, moving along, can you tell us about the well-known Edgar Allan Poe?
Edgar Allan Poe is best known for her short stories. She created the baseline for most modern-day detective stories in which the hero uses logic to solve the mystery. Poe was also famous for her intriguing poems. One of her most famous poems is The Raven.
I think I might have actually heard that. Last, but certainly not least, who was Henry Wadsworth Longfellow?
What a tongue twister. Henry could be considered the most popular poet in the 1800s. His long story poems included Hiawatha, The Courtship of Miles Standish, and Tales of a Wayside Inn, which were all favorites in many American households.
Well, it's been an honor having you here, Adam. Thank you.
Honor coming.
Hello and welcome back to Changing American Society. Today is our third and last segment of this show. Today we will be discussing the women's rights movement. Our master historian on this topic is Jack Reaney. Let's give him a kind welcome. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
Very good. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and I'd like you to answer them for me.
Okay, go ahead.
Here we go. First question. When did the whole women's rights movement start?
Well, the first public convention, the Seneca Falls Convention, was held in 1848, and there were still gatherings before that, so in about the mid-1840s.
That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was, but people still get discriminated today based on their gender.
Although many people today are discriminated based on gender, I would not feel it as much of a problem.
Okay. Second question. Who was the most influential person during the women's rights movement, and why?
I believe that Susan B. Anthony was the most influential person in this movement. She, as somebody once said, Susan B. Anthony brought outstanding administrative abilities to the women's rights movement. She brought such awareness to this that 26 states signed a petition for equal property rights in the mid-1870s.
Susan B. Anthony was very important.
Yes, she was indeed.
Okay, next question. What were the roles of these 5 women in the women's rights movement? Sarah Grimke, Sir Howard Truth, Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Lucy Stone.
Sarah Grimke, she was an abolitionist with her sister Angela in South Carolina. They had such strong opposition to slavery, they said they would have died for it. And this motivation was so appealing to the Southerners, eventually they voted her in. She was the first woman to appear in front of the legislative body. Then they eventually joined Sojourner Truth and her missions. Sojourner Truth, she worked with many important figures, such as the Grimke sisters, to bring change. In 1851, she toured Ohio for 2 years and brought awareness to the Midwest. Lucretia Mott was a key person who consistently made good contributions to this movement. She and Lucy Stone played similar roles throughout the whole women's rights movement. Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She was the first president of the National Women's Segregation Association. Lucy Stone was a key founder in the Equal Rights Association, another association similar to the NWSA.
Wow, that's a lot of information. What's the lasting effect that this movement had on society?
Well, this obviously has changed a whole lot in society. This has led to women being treated equally in most everything. For example, women are allowed to vote, be part of politics, serve in the military, and much more. Without the influential people I mentioned, I don't think any of this would have been possible.
Thank you, Jack, for sharing your knowledge on this subject. You've been a real help.
My pleasure.